After being kicked out of the house with her two stepchildren by her husband, a woman does something that surprises everyone. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Clara was a 16-year-old girl who already worked to help her mother with household expenses. Her father abandoned them to chase a job opportunity in another city, leaving them in a difficult situation. This devastated both her mother and Clara, who, besides suffering from the abandonment, also faced financial difficulties because her mother didn't work as her husband had always managed the finances. Clara was still studying at the time. So, Clara and her mother searched for jobs and managed to scrape by. The money wasn't much, but they were grateful to at least have food on the table. As time went on, Clara noticed that her mother had become more resentful due to the hardships. She turned into a person who didn't trust others and was skeptical of people's intentions. Clara was saddened to see her mother in that state, but she understood that it hadn't been easy for her. However, Clara wished her mother could leave the past behind. Some men showed interest in her mother, but she never responded positively to them. Wanting to give her mother the life she deserved, Clara worked hard at school and was always at the top of her class. When she finished school, Clara got accepted into a reputable nursing program at a top university. She excelled in her studies and secured a job immediately after graduation. Clara was one of the most valued employees at her workplace and earned a good salary, though this drew some envy from others. However, she never let that bother her. Her mother proudly spoke of her to everyone, as Clara was her greatest pride and joy. But one day, her mother fell ill and had to be hospitalized. Clara was devastated when her mother suffered a stroke, leaving her partially paralyzed. From that moment, she would need help with everyday tasks. Without hesitation, Clara left her job to care for her mother full-time. This surprised everyone because friends and colleagues advised her to hire someone for the job, but Clara couldn't bear to leave her mother in someone else's hands. Clara had always been good with money and had a savings fund that could support them for a few years. From that day on, Clara dedicated herself fully to her mother, rarely going out, and spent most of her time with her, watching shows, cooking for her, or simply chatting. Her mother often thanked Clara, saying how much she loved her, tears shining in her eyes as she realized she had a daughter with a rare, selfless heart. Sadly, one morning, Clara woke up to find her mother had passed away peacefully in her sleep. Clara was heartbroken, but what consoled her was that her mother was no longer in pain. Time passed, and Clara still grieved deeply. She barely left the house and had not yet looked for a new job, but her savings would last for another 8 months, so she wasn't too worried yet. At a friend's urging, Clara went out to a dinner gathering and met Leonardo, a charming and charismatic man. Clara felt a spark she had never felt before. Her heart raced just seeing him across the table. They spent the evening talking, and the chemistry was undeniable. Clara never believed in love at first sight, but she couldn't explain the feelings she was experiencing. Leonardo got her number, and they talked daily for hours. Over time, Clara learned that Leonardo had lost both his parents and was raising 2 children on his own. His first child came from a young relationship, but the mother passed away. His second child was from his brief marriage, which ended when his wife left, abandoning both him and their son. Since then, Leonardo had been raising them alone while running a profitable home decor business. Time passed, and Clara fell deeply in love. She moved in with Leonardo, and they began living as a family. Clara also grew to love his children, Lucas and Mateus. She felt a motherly affection for them and, over time, became fully devoted to caring for them. Clara was content with her new life and didn't feel the need to seek a new job. A year after they moved in together, the couple decided to try for a child. Clara felt like a mother to Lucas and Mateus, but yearned to have a child of her own. They tried for months, but she never got pregnant, causing her much distress. She feared she might be infertile since Leonardo had already fathered 2 children, though she never sought medical advice. Over time, Leonardo's business began struggling due to the economic downturn. Clara then saw a side of him she hadn't known. He became short-tempered, withdrew from her and the children, and grew distant. As Clara couldn't get pregnant, tensions rose. He started staying out late, often returning home drunk and hurling cruel remarks at her, accusing her of being worthless for not contributing financially. For a while, Clara silently endured the pain, but she knew her worth. She was the one caring for his children and keeping the household together. She hadn't sought work because she had no one to leave the boys with, especially since the nanny was no longer around. Then one day, Leonardo left and never returned. Clara was frantic, thinking something might have happened to him. But days later, a real estate agent showed up at her door and informed her that the house was up for sale and they had to vacate the premises. She was horrified. Leonardo had abandoned her with his 2 children and put the house up for sale without a word. She tried contacting him, but he never answered. She had to move out with the boys, and with the help of friends, she found a small apartment where they could stay. Lucas and Mateus had no other relatives aside from their father, who had disappeared. She loved both boys dearly and would never abandon them, nor would she let them return to their father out of fear that he might abandon them again. As she struggled, she thought of her mother and the hardships she had endured. Clara finally understood the weight of dedicating yourself to a family only to be discarded like something worthless. Clara couldn't afford to dwell on her sorrow because she had to care for the boys. They lived in a modest apartment, and Clara managed to find a job. She left the boys at home, giving them strict instructions on what they could and couldn't do, and to call her if anything happened. The boys always hugged her before she left for work. One day, both boys hugged her tightly and called her Mom. Clara was deeply moved and cried. Everything they were going through was tough, but their love for each other was what kept them strong. Over time, Clara was able to afford a nanny to look after them, and their situation gradually improved. Though Clara still felt bitterness towards Leonardo, she thought she would never be able to love again. However, her neighbor Raphael, who often greeted her with a warm smile, began offering small gestures of kindness. He was always polite, but Clara wasn't interested in romance anymore. Then one day, Clara came home to find her apartment ransacked, and the boys were missing. Panic-stricken, she feared the worst. But Raphael appeared and informed her that the children were safe at his place. Clara rushed over to them. Lucas, the older one, explained that their father had shown up, angry, and started tearing the place apart. Scared, they ran to Raphael's for help. Raphael had called the police, who were still on their way. Clara didn't know what Leonardo wanted, but she wasn't going to wait around to find out. However, she had nowhere else to go. Raphael offered them a place in a small house he owned that was currently vacant. Clara gratefully accepted and was touched by Raphael's generosity in not charging rent. Raphael continued to visit them regularly, and Clara began to feel safe around him, even developing feelings. But her heart was still guarded, and she wasn't ready to love again, fearing more heartbreak. One day after work, Clara found Leonardo waiting outside her workplace. Startled, she reluctantly agreed to listen to him. He apologized for abandoning her, explaining that his business had gone bankrupt and he was left penniless, forcing him to sell the house. He tried other ventures, but nothing succeeded. He also mentioned a brief relationship that ended poorly. Clara listened in silence, fuming inside. Leonardo continued, saying he had recently been diagnosed with a serious illness and needed to find a bone marrow donor. His children were his only close relatives, but as minors, they couldn't donate without court approval. In return, he promised not to take the children from her. Despite her anger, Clara agreed, not wanting him to be denied treatment. The test revealed that neither of the boys was a match. Additionally, the doctor hinted that there might be another reason why they weren't compatible, but Leonardo didn't grasp the implication. Finally, the doctor told him that the boys weren't his biological children. Leonardo was in disbelief. Both children had different mothers, yet the doctor explained that the test results were almost certain. They conducted further tests, which confirmed that Leonardo was infertile. The revelation was a shock to everyone. The women he had been with had both deceived him, while Clara had never been able to conceive because he was sterile. Leonardo left in tears, overcome with anger. Clara tried to speak to him, but he told her he never wanted to see the boys, or her, again. Leonardo disappeared once more, and Clara never heard from him again. She sought legal custody of Lucas and Mateus since their father had abandoned them. She already felt like their mother, and wanted it to be official. Time passed, and the boys grew into handsome, kind young men. Clara eventually opened her heart again and married Raphael, who had proven himself to be a caring and trustworthy person who loved both her and the boys. They had a beautiful son named Daniel. Clara never heard from Leonardo again. She didn't know if he sought treatment or what became of him. In the end, she realized that, despite all the pain, life had rewarded her with the happiness and love she had always deserved. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.